Yo, what is up guys? It's Pedro here. In today's video, we'll be talking about a surprise pick that Adam Schefter says the Washington Commanders could make at 29 that would surprise everyone, including Washington Commanders fans. If you guys are new, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and that notification bell as well. Comment down below your top pick you want the Commanders to make and the pick you would be least happy about. So for me, one of the top picks, Donovan Ezaraku would be great. I really like him. Ibuka, wide receiver from Ohio State, would be a good option as well. One of the ones I wouldn't like as much would be a guy like Shamar Stewart or the surprise pick that he has the Washington Commanders taking. So this was Adam Schefter, going over some rumors before the draft and talking about, where certain players are going to go, trades that are going to happen, stuff like that. And he said that, Schwessinger is projected by many as a day 2 pick, has a chance to go in the end of round 1 to a team such as the Commanders or Bills that might be looking for additional defensive help. So Carson Schwessinger, I believe that's how you pronounce it. I was watching some highlights from UCLA just to see that. And, Schwessinger has some connections to the Commanders just in terms of, all right, Adam Peters went to UCLA, so you got that connection. But I'm not a big fan of taking not a running back. A running back I would be more in tune for, but a linebacker in the first that, in my opinion, is not an elite prospect. If it was someone like Jahad Campbell, that's a different story. But Jahad Campbell is not going to be available. So let's go ahead and look at some information on Carson here from UCLA. So I don't necessarily think that Schefter's reporting the Commanders are interested in him. He's talking about the possibility that them or the Bills, make that pick, and I think he's just alluding to, he's just trying to squeeze in his rumor article that, all right, this guy might actually go in the first round, and he alluded to the Commanders as a possible team. Just some information about Carson: 6'2 and a half, 242 pounds. 20 bench press reps, which is all right. 39.5 inch vertical, which is amazing. Let's see. Let's get out of this here. I guess we'll keep going down. But projected to go in round 2. Was a walk-on to All-American at UCLA. That's, great story. He's expected to be, he was only a starter for 1 season. Good instincts, athleticism, and competitiveness. Future starter either inside or as a 4-3 will linebacker. That's what Lance Zierlein has to say. You can see some of the strengths, some of the weaknesses. Will be a special teams star, or we'll be able to play on special teams right away. If he's a first round pick, I don't know if you're gonna want to play him there. It seems like he has decent speed from what I saw in the highlights, able to get to the quarterback, and apparently he's a pretty good coverage guy. Let's go look at some stats on Carson real quick. So, I try to familiarize myself with like every single possible player that the Washington Commanders could draft in the first round. Obviously, second round is more difficult. Third round, fourth round, that's almost impossible to know every guy unless you're really just doing a lot of work with the draft. And not that I'm not, but that's just a lot. But this guy is a guy that, I didn't know much about. Maybe I heard his name before, but, wasn't a name that I heard too much just because, didn't really hear him much in the first round. And then also, I don't think the Commanders are going to be looking for a linebacker day 1 or even day 2. That's not a priority. But if a guy falls that they really like, that's a different story. So had over 100 tackles this past year, 136, had 90 solo tackles, 3 pass breakups, I guess, or pass defended is, I guess, what it technically is called. 4 sacks, so he can get to the quarterback. 1 forced fumble and 2 interceptions for the Bruins this past season. So, really good season for him, which catapulted him up the draft boards. And yeah, probably will be, I don't think a first round pick, but Schefter's alluding to it. So there's a possibility it happens. I would probably err more on the side of the second round, maybe probably not third round, but maybe early second round at this point. But for me, that's just not the pick I think the Commanders should make. There's way more important positions, and also because I know when I say better players at positions of need, or even other people say it, they're like, what, you should be focusing on best player available, and I somewhat agree with that. But in this scenario, like, I don't think it's good value for drafting Carson, and also not at a position of need. So it's just a double whammy of not necessarily doing what you need. But hey, it might be the scenario where Adam Peters, for him, this is the best player available, and if that's the case, then hey, you can go ahead and take him. That makes sense, and I'm going to trust Adam Peters on what he's doing. So if he drafts Carson Schlesinger, then we'll have to trust in that, and we'll see what he can do for the Commanders. It'll definitely make the Commanders defense better for sure. They need more playmakers. I don't necessarily think linebacker is a position they need to add right now, where they do have Frankie Louvu, who I think is a stud. You got Bobby Wagner for another year. You have Jordan McGee and Dominique Hampton, which I'm not banking. Sorry, I was couldn't think of the word, but I'm not banking on those guys being studs or even starters. But who knows? Maybe one of those guys can be. You could also draft a guy early day 3 this year and try to develop him, or maybe even day 2 if you want. Maybe you trade back in the first round and you get a second round pick, early second round pick, and then also get an additional third. Then maybe you can play around it a little bit more and get a linebacker. I just don't think that's necessarily the priority for the Washington Commanders. All right, so some other rumors, and like Steve says here, Schefter's Intel article listed Washington as a team for Schlesinger, but it was more so a nod that he could go in round 1, and I definitely agree with that. So some interesting stuff here. The drop off between number 10 and 32, according to a lot of teams, isn't that high compared to in past years. So that is an advantage, obviously, for the Washington Commanders, considering they do draft at 29. Trades, there's not a lot of trades expected, and it's because of the lack of blue chip prospects. And the Browns inquired from the possibility of trading up from number 2, and the Giants were even more persistent in their efforts to try to trade up for their top pick with the Titans. The Titans want to stick at 1. And the Steelers, they're trying to move back. Jaguars, Panthers, Niners, Falcons, Seahawks, Bucks, and Vikings are all trying to go back. Or I guess he's kind of mentioning that they all have 4 picks, unless he's just saying about the Vikings. But I think he's talking about some of these teams that have limited picks. And, he thinks that they're going to try to trade back. I guess he might be just talking about the Vikings. He doesn't list the Commanders there, so interesting there, because a lot of people have, pegged the Washington Commanders as one of the teams to trade back. And then let's see, Denver is one of those. The Broncos have made inquiries about moving up in round 1, so that's one of the teams that could move up. And then obviously other teams that miss out on a quarterback or want to take a quarterback late in the first round, well, that's where they can call the Washington Commanders. And obviously when you are trading for back into the first round, especially for a quarterback, usually it's a little bit more expensive. You're paying a premium because you are going for a quarterback. So those teams that are going to be trying to spin back, like the maybe the Giants, but obviously we wouldn't trade with them for that. You could think about the Saints as another possibility, maybe the Browns, teams like that. Are maybe the Rams, if they want to. I don't know. The Rams already not trading. They're already picking pretty late anyways in the first round. They might as well just take their guy there. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you guys did enjoy. Just wanted to talk about this rumor about the Washington Commanders possibly taking this linebacker on the end of day 1. But thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace.